Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you, my Father. I thank you for this day. I thank you for the season and the timing that we find ourselves in. Oh, Abba Father, if I just look at this chapter 15 of the Song of Moses that is being sung here to you, this is the song that should be the song of our hearts. I praise you and I thank you, my Father, for that which you are doing in our lives in this hour. Father, truly I know better than I've ever known before, that there is such darkness that is at this point in time currently surrounding us, and it's just getting worse. There's just so much death. Oh my goodness. There's just so much death. There's death. So many people are dying. Yet at the end of the day, you will breathe life into those. You will protect those that will be able to be those that are set apart, like those that are in your Goshen. Just like you did with the Israelites that were in the wilderness, my Father. You protected them in that Goshen, where they did not have to be affected in any way. After the fourth plague, they were no longer affected. After the fourth plague, you set them apart. And I thank you, Father, that you are setting apart a people in this hour. That even though the enemy will come in like a flood, but you are going to raise a standard against him. And I thank you, my Father, because you are really strengthening a people. You are really doing a mighty work in this hour where people that are going to have to go through a lot of trials, the more difficult the assignments, the richer the reward that we have. So the more difficult the things are that we're going to go through, the greater the reward. And so I just want to thank you, Father, because, you see, we need to understand Yeshua learned obedience through what he suffered. And there is always a suffering that takes place. We don't always want the suffering. We don't always want to have to go through these difficult times. But I thank you, Father, because in the meantime, you give us these little kisses from heaven, these little open heavens that you give us to be able to feel a touch from you, to be able to feel just like we are spoiled by you because we are your set apart. Those that are set apart, those that have truly humbled and are wanting to walk a path with you. Oh, Father, you are going to raise up a people now, those that are your beloveds, those that are your set apart ones, those that you have called by name, those that need to shine in the hour that we are in. Truly, my Father, now's the time that we will arise and shine. For our light has come, for the glory of Yahuwah has risen upon us. And I just want to thank you, Father, because we need to focus on what you're doing in this hour. We don't need to focus on what the enemy is doing in this hour, but we need to focus on what you are doing in this hour. And you are going to raise up a priesthood. You are truly going to raise up a people in this hour that need to raise up and bring glory and honor to your name. And Abba, when we go through this Exodus chapter 15, there's such an encouragement in this for us. But at the same time, there is a warning that is right at the end. So much encouragement, but then at the end, a warning for us. But Abba Yahuwah, I just want to thank you, because the encouragement is there to exalt you. That is what you want. You just want to be exalted. You want to be exalted. You want to be able to allow yourself to be, you are the one that wants to be exalted. Doesn't matter what we go through. We are to exalt you. We are to praise you. We are to worship you. We are to bow ourselves before you, to understand that you are the King of glory. You are the one that came riding on that donkey. You are the one that gave us Messiah Yahushua, the one that came riding on that donkey and that he was hailed as king. He was selected. He was chosen to be able to now, in this hour, be the lamb that is being inspected. And is he inspecting our fruit? We too are being inspected. We too are being looked at. Are we ready to be a lamb surrendered on a slaughter, to truly come to the place of where we can now say, I want to surrender all so that I can start my journey and my process wanting to enter into that set apart place with you, going into that tabernacle with you. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I really thank you for this time and this incredible hour that we are living in, and that you are mindful of us, and that you are willing to use mere flesh and blood human beings to be able to bring you glory. And how amazing it is to be able to stand back, just like right now, how I can sit over here with a pain that has been going on in my back, burning the whole day, but I can sit over here now and say, you are the King of Glory that has come to touch my back, to say, my child, I will lift up, because you were obedient to say, even though this is not what I want to do right now, but because I bowed my knee to say, Abba, I will do what you want despite what I feel in my body. When we take the first step in obedience, you take the two to follow. If we would just understand that. If we just take the first step, you take the two to follow. And so, Father, you are so faithful. And I marvel at your faithfulness. And today I really want to be able to sing to you, just like Moses was singing to you, just like the Israelites were singing to you, of your glory, of your might and of your power, of your victory, and everything that you are doing in this hour. And so I praise and I thank you for this time, my Father. I pray that you come, and I'm just a vessel here tonight, Father. Truly, I am just a vessel here tonight. But I pray, my Father, that you will speak to my mind and speak through my lips the very oracles that's going to come from your heart. Please let this be your message, Father, and not mine, so that you may come and set the captives free, and be able to encourage your people, and be able to lift up your people, and to be able to put their feet solid on the rock of Yeshua. And so I thank you, Father, that I may be lower, and that you alone may be exalted, and that your words will be spoken tonight and not mine. And so I thank you, Father, that you are the one that will do a mighty work here tonight. I praise and I thank you for this in the name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen. And so praise Abba Father. We were in Exodus chapter 15, and we ended in Exodus chapter 15 verse 7. And so we had a look at verse 7, and verse 7 spoke about how in the greatness of your excellency, you pull down those who rose up against you. You send forth your wrath. It consumed them like stubble. And we spoke about Revelation chapter 19 from verses 11 to 16, how Yeshua is going to rise up and he's going to bring his wrath. He's going to bring vengeance upon the nations of the world. He's going to bring his vengeance upon those who were disobedient and did not want to receive him, who continued to oppose him, who continued to oppose him to his face. And how many of them are out there right now doing this? And we see that he's going to bring his judgments and he's going to bring his wrath. And so we continue tonight, and we pick up in verses 8, and it says, and with the wind of your nostrils. Wow. Understand something. When I was reading this, with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up. The floods stood like a wall. The depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. So how do we think the waters parted? The waters parted with the wind, and then the waters closed with the wind. And which wind? They say the wind of his nostrils. Father blew on that sea. And those waters would have parted. Father blew. He waited until all those Egyptians went chasing after them in their chariots into the sea. And as they chased after the Israelites in their chariots, he just waited for them to get to the middle. And when they were all in there, he went and closed the waters over them. He blew from his nostrils and he destroyed his enemies. That's why he said to them, the enemies that you see today, you will see them no longer. And it's amazing because Ron Wyatt, there is a whole documentary that he has as well on where he found the real place of the parting of the Red Sea. And if they've gone diving down the bottom over there, and those chariot wheels are still there. You can't really see those ones, but you see the moss and the formation, because obviously the algae and everything has grown on it, but you see the formation of the wheels. But the Pharaoh's chariot was made, the wheels were made of pure gold. And those wheels are there at the bottom of the sea, because the gold, nothing is growing on it. So you can actually see, there's footage and everything where you can see that chariot wheels are there. And then people still want to be able to deny the Bible and say, oh, this is all just nice stories. But you see, unless someone goes out, especially these archaeologists, and a faithful man like Ron Wyatt, who really labored for the kingdom, to be able to go out of his way. Just what he discovered, he put his life in danger to go and discover the real Mount Sinai called Jabal al-Lawz in Saudi Arabia. He put his life in danger. And the most amazing thing is he just took his Bible and he went and he walked and he read the word. And as he read the word, that is how he found exactly where was this and where was this. There would have been a bunch of trees there. And then he saw exactly where all the water was. He saw the split rock. He saw all of that. And yet, people still deny. Jabal al-Lawz, the very top of the mountain, is burnt black when the Father brought his fire on there. Fire and lightning hit the top of the mountain. And it's all there for people to see. But people deny it. And then people have all these other ideas of where the Red Sea crossing was. But he's been able to locate the exact pinpoint, the exact place where the crossing took place. And it's not by the place of where they got the other counterfeit Mount Sinai that's in Egypt. It was more the crossing by where Jabal al-Lawz on the side of Saudi Arabia. Well, they were coming from the Egypt side, but it's like all there. But the place of where they've got that counterfeit, and just shows you, they went to the counterfeit mountain, and on the counterfeit mountain, they went and made their own 10 commandments. An absolute defilement in the eyes of the Father. But you see, there's always the defilement, there's always the counterfeit, and then there's the true. And look how sad it is that the true, we cannot get there, because it's in Saudi Arabia, and how do you go in to be able to go to that place? So there's always something that will want to hinder us from being able to, then the enemy will protect these things so that we're not able to reveal the things. But praise the Father, just like Ron Wyatt, there's been others that have gone and that they have exposed these truths and showed documentaries of the things that they discovered in order to be able to bring the people to the revelation of the knowledge of the truth. And so the same it is with the Red Sea crossing. There those chariot wheels in gold are at the bottom of the sea. And that's what the Father did. He blew a wind. Now imagine, he blows this wind and he's able to close the water with the wind. Now where else do we see a significant place when he is going to blow a wind that is going to be able to judge the nations? So if we go look at Revelation chapter 7, and it says, after this, Revelation chapter 7 from verses 1 to verse 3. And it says, and after this, I saw 4 messengers standing at the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, and the winds should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. I saw another messenger coming up from the rising of the sun, holding the seal of the living Allah, and he cried with a loud voice to the 4 messengers to whom it was given to harm the earth and the sea, and saying, do not harm the earth, nor the sea, nor the trees, until we have sealed the servants of our Allah upon their foreheads. So do you see? The same as the Father with this wind, he didn't bring the wind until such time as he knew his people were safe on the other side. And these Egyptians were exactly at a place just when they thought, we got the victory now. We're going to get them. We're also going to pass through the same place where they passed. But you see, Yahuwah will fight for us and we will hold our shalom, because that's what he said. I will fight for you and you will hold your shalom. So he waited until the last woman, child, donkey, whatever it was, had to get to the other side. And when they were safe on the other side, sealed by him, with the cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night that is going to lead them in where they're going to have to go. Then, what happens? The sea closes with the wind. He brings the wind, and the wind closes in on them. And the same as what it says of here. The messengers had to hold back that wind from the 4 corners of the earth, the wind of his judgment upon his enemies. And so this is what we must understand. So in Revelation, he's holding back the winds of his judgment, of his wrath that is going to come upon the nations of the world, upon the earth, and he's not going to unleash it until he has sealed every last one that needs to be sealed, the 144,000. So some of this 144,000 are still in the process of being equipped. Some of them have already been fully equipped. Others of them are still in the process of being equipped. And Abba knows those that are his. He knows those that are part of his 144,000. And he's waiting for them to be sealed off. But I tell you now, when the last one of them is sealed off, you must understand, these winds are going to blow. And his judgments are going to come. So, we continue to read in Exodus chapter 14 from verses 9, and it says, and the enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil, my being is satisfied on them, I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. So understand, we are going to have many enemies out there that are going to want to destroy us, that are going to want to kill us, but I tell you now, you will be sealed off by the living Yah. There is a sealing off that is coming now, where the enemy will not touch you. He will not touch you. You will be in that sealing off. You know, sure, right now, this, you know, I'm busy at the moment reading through Genesis from Noah and understanding the Noah together with the Passover, and it fits 100% together with exactly what is going on. Exactly what we are facing over here with this timing that we are in lines up 100%. Because remember, when did Noah come out of the ark? Noah came out of the ark at the time of the springtime. He came out of the ark at the time of the second Passover. So it was definitely at a time of when it would have been the Passover. And now new beginning starts. New beginning, new life, new earth starts. And so therefore, it all lines up together. And the revelation of the things that the Father has unfolded by being able to look at all of this together with having to look at the Passover. How the Passover is absolutely married up together with understanding Noah. And what did the Father do? He put them in a place of protection in an ark. And then what did he do to his enemies? He destroyed them with the water. He killed them all with the water. So what does he do with them? Takes them to the other side in the wilderness and then opens up the water, and the water comes and destroys them. And now he starts a journey with them, as he's going to start a journey with Noah, coming into a new time, a new earth, and now having to lead him on where he needs to go. But so interesting. Just like, here they are, going to the other side. They just get to the other side, starting a new beginning, and right at the end we're going to see what they do. And so it was with Noah. Do you understand? Because the fallen nature of man, unfortunately, if we do not crucify that flesh man just has a way of constantly raising its ugly head, because the enemy is not going to leave us alone. He's always going to attack us in our mind, in our will, in our emotions. He attacks us. And then if he gets his way in our mind, if he gets his way in our will, if he gets his way in our emotions, then the body is going to follow with what the enemy is doing. We looked at this intensely last week. And so we have a look and we continue to read, and it says, you did blow with your wind, and the sea covered them. They sank like lead to the mighty waters. And that's exactly where all those chariots are, at the bottom of the sea, sunk like lead to the bottom of the sea. Who is like you, O Yahuwah? Now you see, these are the things that we must understand. Who is like Yahuwah? Who is like you? Who is like you, O Yahuwah, among the mighty ones? Who is like you? Great in set apartness, awesome in praises, working wonders. Is this how we see our Creator? Or do we see him as a limp, and we see the devil far greater than what he is? You see, this is the problem. We give the devil too much credit. And we make the devil to be greater than the Father. He is not. But we make him out to be, because that is what the enemy wants us to see when we see him. The enemy wants us to see him as being greater than the Father. Because of the attacks that come on us, we tend to make the devil focus more on making the devil greater than the Father. Our perspective needs to change. You know, when you just have a change of mindset, you'll have a change of everything. You just need to change your mindset. And the mindset is, who do you make greater? Are you going to make the Father greater? Or are you going to make the enemy greater? Who are you going to make greater? So, I say to you today, what is your focus on? Is the Father, it's like, you know what? I saw a picture the one time, which was a beautiful picture. You see this cat. This cat is sitting over there, but it's a little kitten. But all of a sudden there's this roaring lion. It sees itself as a roaring lion. And you see, this is what happens. The enemy is like a little cat, but yet we see it as a roaring lion. And this is the problem. He comes like a roaring lion, looking to see who he can devour, like a roaring lion. But who is the lion? It's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And he is the one who will roar and put him in his place. That's why he says, submit to Yahuwah, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. But what is the first thing we need to do? Submit to Yahuwah, raise his name up, raise him up. Then you resist the devil, and then he flees. But you know, instead what we're trying to do? We're trying to fight the devil and not resist him. And the only way to resist him is to submit to the Father. How do you submit to the Father? By making the Father far greater than what you face right now. Making the Father far greater than what the enemy is showing you right now. And this is what we need to do. You stretched out your hand, and the earth swallowed them. So, is that what we will believe? You see, beloved, you must understand, to the level of your faith is what you're going to have, what's going to happen. If you believe that the Father can truly deliver you and set you free, then you will be set free, and believe it. But if you're going to constantly believe the enemy's torment, and continue to believe the enemy and his torment in our minds, in our wills, in our emotions, that is what we're going to have coming our way. So you have to make a conscious decision. You see, that's the will. The will is to say, you know what? I am not going to fall prey to this anymore. And then you take your stand. Then you got to be, you see, in the enemy's eyes, you might be a little cat. But in the Father's eyes, when you open your mouth, he's the one that becomes the roaring lion, because he's the one who's going to fight for you as the roaring lion of the tribe of Judah. And that's the one that the enemy fears. But you see, the enemy wants you to fear him. The enemy doesn't want you to be able to overcome him. The enemy wants you to fear him, because as long as you fear him, you will never get your victory. Do you understand? So he says, in your loving commitment, you led the people whom you have redeemed in your strength. You guided them to your set-apart dwelling. Oh, wow. This is amazing, because understand, they don't even understand anything about a set-apart dwelling. They've never even seen a mishkan. They've never seen a tabernacle. They don't know anything about a tabernacle, but they know that there's a dwelling place, that he's going to send us to the dwelling place. So you see, where do you run to? What is he saying? In your loving commitment, you led the people whom you redeemed. So he's going to lead us because he's redeemed us by the power of the blood of Yeshua in his strength. And then what does he do? He's then going to guide us to his set-apart dwelling. So do you understand? He's redeemed us. He's led us, then he redeems us, and then he strengthens us, and then he guides us into his set-apart dwelling. He guides us back to the tabernacle, which is his dwelling place, which is where he dwells. So this is what he's doing in our lives. But what are we doing? Are we coming back to that place of the Holy of Holies, of intimacy with him, of total surrenderedness? See, that's why we got to go to a brazen altar first, to be able to lay our lives down there. Because until we lay our lives down, then how is he going to? He's already redeemed us. He redeemed us by the blood of Yeshua. The fact that he's redeemed us, then he gives us a strength. And then what does he do? He guides us then. So you see, the footsteps of a righteous person is guided by Yahuwah. And where's he guiding us to? Everything about our path is guiding us back to that set-apart dwelling. So understand, this is his pattern. This is what he wants. He wants us to come back to his presence, to the dwelling place of where he dwells. And so if we don't follow the path, if we want to do it our way, and we're not being guided by him, then you know what? He will allow you to go your path. And then we wonder why there's so much chastising. And then we wonder why there's so much, hardships and suffering. And suffering sometimes needs to come for us to be able to learn His way. Because Yeshua had to go through suffering in order to learn obedience. Do you understand? And so this is what we need to do. This is what it says in Hebrews. I think it's chapter 5. It's just, yes. Yeah. Yeshua learned obedience through His suffering. So Hebrews, I'm just going there quickly. Hebrews chapter 5, verse 8. Though being a son, He learned obedience by what He suffered. So understand, His path is not an easy path. It's the straight and narrow path. It's the straight and narrow path back to the Holy of Holies. Because remember, what is the life? He says, narrow is the path that leads to life, and few find it, because the life is coming back to that set apart place of the Holy of Holies with Him. But that's going to take suffering, because what does that mean? Narrow is the path that leads to life, and few find it, because it's a path of thlipsis. It's a hardships. It's trials. It's all these trials and hardships that we've got to go through. But you see, nobody wants the hardships and the trials, but everybody wants to come to the Holy of Holies. Now, how is any servant greater than his master? If Yeshua had to learn obedience through what He suffered, then what makes us think we're not going to learn obedience by what we suffer? Because we're not any greater than Him. And so this suffering is to be able to mold us, is to be able to shape us, is to be able to bring us into that place of obeying Him. Do you understand? That the more we learn to obey Him, when we obey Him, then we receive the blessing. So you want to receive your blessing? Just obey me. I mean, I was trying today to find every excuse to say, Father, I don't want to do this today. I really, really don't. I said, I'm not up to this today. I don't feel like I'm doing this today. I don't want to do this today. Everything in me was kicking up against doing this lesson today. And the Father said, my child, I want you to do this lesson today. And I just had to submit. And say, okay, Father, I'm going to submit. And I'm going to do it. Doesn't matter how I feel. I'm going to do what you want me to do. And so you see, if we're going to be obedient, then He will be able to bring the blessing, because you've taken the step of obedience. But you see, how many times do we have that come our way, and then we give in to the flesh? And we say, no, I don't want to do this now. Because you know what? My flesh doesn't want to do it now. Yes, no, my flesh didn't want to do it, and I'm going to be honest. It didn't. Because I wasn't feeling up to it. And quite honestly, I didn't even have a message. He said, if you open your mouth, I put the words that you need to speak. So what are you concerned about? So these things cost a price. And so that's why he says, that's why we come to the set apart dwelling place. Why? Because you see, that's exactly what it is. Yeshua he had to suffer in order to make the way. He became obedient so that we now have an example to follow. But you see, everybody wants to come into the Holy of Holies. So it says, narrow is the path that leads to life, and few find it. Because what is the life? I am the way, outer court. I am the truth, holy place. I am the life, Holy of Holies. And few find it. Why? Because few are willing to go through the thlipsis. Few are willing to go through the persecution and the trial and the test and the suffering that goes with it in order to be able to get there. So it says, peoples heard, they trembled, anguish gripped the inhabitants of Philistia. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled, the mighty men of Moab, trembling grips them. all the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Fear and dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. Okay, let's stop there. So you see, when the Father takes us through a mighty trial, I mean, understand this was a trial for them. It was a trial for them because when they stood when they stood on the edge of that Red Sea, the Red Sea was in front of them. The enemy was behind them. They were starting to fear. They were starting to say to Moses, where to now? Did you bring us out of here to die? We should have rather stayed in Egypt. Now you've brought us out of here to die. See, there's the trial. But the Father will come and deliver you out of the trial. But what is it about? To be able to bring glory and honor to His name by the fact that you can give testimony of who He is and of His greatness, of His might and of His power and of His strength. So this is not about us. This is not about us. We are here to bring glory to His name. It's not about us. And so that's why He says, fear and dread fell on them. Now, do you see, understand, these are non-believers. Non-believers that are fearing the Father by what they see. So the fear and the dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. But you see, why is it that there's no fear upon the believers who truly serve the Father? So the non-believers look and see what the Father does and they fear. But what do believers do? Where's the fear of Yahuwah? Where's the fear of Yahuwah that is the beginning of wisdom? Why do we not have so much wisdom in the church? Because there's no fear of Yahuwah. We have lost the reverence of Yahuwah. But you see, Father is making Himself known by putting a fear in Him. Now we want to sit and say, oh no, it's not to fear Him. It's not to be scared of Him. Excuse me? When your parent spoke to you, and they spoke, if by the third time they said something, you better fear. You know why? Because you're going to get a hiding, or you're going to get reprimanded, or something's going to happen to you, because they've spoken to you, they've spoken to you. You have not wanted to obey. You have not wanted to bow your knee. You have not wanted to listen to what they said. So what awaits you? Only fearful judgment, isn't it? Now, do we think our Father's going to do any different to us? Oh, you know what? I can just continue to defy Him. I can just continue to do my own thing. I can just continue to go my own way, but nothing is going to befall me. No. We better fear Him. This is the living Yah. This is the living Yah, the creator of heaven and earth. And we think we can play around with Him. But who do we think we are? Where is the reverence for who He is? Understand, He blows on the sea and the sea will part. And now we think we can demand and command from Him? Do we demand and command from our parents? When you were a child, did you demand and command from your parents? What did you get when you threw your little temper tantrum? When you sat in a shop and you threw your temper tantrum and you started screaming and shouting, well, nowadays you're not even allowed to be able to do anything to a child. But in our day, if we sat and started demanding and commanding from our parents that we wanted that, let me tell you, that might be the last time I will do that in a shop. But you see, we think we can be spoiled brats with a father and do demand and command and carry on like we want as rebellious children. We need to come right. Because we need to put Him in His proper place. And this is the problem. We haven't put Him in His proper place. So fear and dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. So see, this is His arm. They are as silent as a stone. So what should we be? Silent before the Father to understand His greatness, His majesty, His might, His power, His strength, His holiness, His set-apartness. That's how we should be. Silent before Him in understanding who is He and who am I. Until your people pass over. O Yahuwah, until the people whom you have brought pass over. So, you see, He made Himself clear. He already did all the plagues in Egypt, and the people already heard about Him. But now this is a mighty miracle that He's doing. And from here, because of Yahuwah, they will fear the Israelites because they'll say, they're Yah. They're Yah. So you see, the enemy needs to fear you, not you fear him. The enemy needs to fear you because of the one whom you serve. Just like they will fear the Israelites because of the one that they serve, because of the one that they pray to, because of the one who delivered them. Isn't that the way it should be? The enemy fearing you, as opposed to you fearing the enemy? Where's the authority? When you take the authority back to the Father and say, look at what he does. Look at what he's done. The enemy should tremble because he knows his outcome. So let's read verse 17. You bring them into the plant. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance. So you see, what is the Father doing? He's going to deliver us. He's going to be able to come. He's going to redeem us. He's going to be able to strengthen us. He's going to be able to guide us and to his set-apart dwelling place, because that is where the mountain of Yahuwah is. He says, come up to this mountain. It's the highway of holiness that is leading us back to that mountain, the mountain of Yahuwah, his holy mountain. And that is where our inheritance is. So he's giving us an inheritance. So we walk in this inheritance. In the place, O Yahuwah, which you have made for your own dwelling, the set-apart place, O Yahuwah, which your hands have prepared. So see, again, you have made for your own dwelling. So this is the set-apart mountain. I mean, this is, understand, there was going to be no temple. They've never seen a temple. They've never seen they haven't heard anything about a temple. These are the people that are still dwelling in the wilderness. They've just come out of Egypt. They've been in bondage for the last over 400 years. And now they're talking about a mountain. They're talking about your own dwelling. The set-apart place, O Yahuwah, which your hands have prepared. So the Father's prepared a set-apart place for us. Yahuwah reigns forever and ever. So understand, this is being seen in the Spirit. This is such a spiritual song, this. It's all about the Spirit. They're seeing things in the Spirit that they've never even perceived with their eyes. For the horses of Pharaoh went with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Yahuwah brought back the waters of the sea upon them. So understand, we see all of this. What is going to happen? For the horses of the Pharaoh went with his chariots and his horsemen into the sea, and Yahuwah brought back the waters of the sea upon them, and the children of Israel went on dry ground in the midst of the sea. So you see, the Father will destroy and cover up his enemies. What did he do to Korah? In Numbers chapter 16 verses 1 to 4, and then again from verses 29 to 33, did the earth not consume and bury him alive because of his rebellion against the Father? Is that not what the Father did? The earth swallowed them up alive. So he will be the one, just like the sea covered them. So the earth covered Korah. And these were the priests. But their rebellion to want to bring strange fire. They wanted to be able to burn their own incense. They brought their own incense burners to be able to burn before the Father, when the Father he set apart his priests, and they were now Levites, and they said, but we can also bring the incense. You know, this is how rebellion, to say, yes, but I can also do this. Father puts people in place in the positions that he puts, in the things that he wants for them to do. Each one has their place. And we need to embrace each other to understand we are all servants to serve the Master. But at the end of the day, we must understand that the Father is the one who chooses whom he chooses to do what he chooses them to do. We can't just go and decide, this is my place now. I want to do this. If the Father didn't call you to do that, you can't just go and do that because you think it's a good idea. And Miriam, verse 20, and Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took the timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with the timbrels and with the dancers. Now, isn't it sad? So in the church we will have all the singers, but man, if they dance, that's of the devil. Yet what did Miriam do? Well, Miriam took her tambourine. Miriam went ahead. Miriam was a prophetess. She took her tambourine and she went dancing ahead, leading the people in a dance. So do you see, there's not just the worship of singing. We always see worship to the Father as only singing. Worship of the Father is far greater than just singing. Like I discussed last week, the highest form of worship is really obedience. And yet at the end of the day, this is a form of worship to the Father. Yes, we can sing to the Father, but then there are those that have been called to dance for the Father. And in the dancing, there's no speaking words to Him. There's no doing words. There's no words coming out of your mouth. It's everything about your entire body having to be able to bring worship to Him. This is what many times that I say to the Father when I worship. I say, Father, let every single fragment of my body, let every single bone, let everything in me as I dance bring glory to You. Because it's not like I'm singing a song to Him, but I'm dancing for Him. And so, in many churches, dancing is not even allowed, because they see that as of the devil. Just because, once again, the devil has perverted worship. So there's music. Remember, the devil never created anything. The only thing that I think he created is heavy metal. Because there can't be anything worse than that to one's ears. Because that is seriously demonic. That is not even sound. That's just noise. And that's all the devil knows how to do, is make a noise. But sound was created by Abba Yahuwah. But you see, the devil doesn't like it. So therefore he will distort it. Because what was he? He was the lead angel of what? Of worship. And so therefore, he wants to defile the worship, because he doesn't want us to worship the Father. So he perverts everything. He'll pervert the dance, and now he's got thousands and millions of people dancing for him in nightclubs. Then he's got all these singers singing for him too. And all the worship that should have been given to the Father. People were given voices to worship the Father. Freely they've been given, freely they should give. But now what have they done out of it? You know, what have they made out of it? It's about them. No. It's a gift. The gift is to glorify the Father, and the gift is for the Father. It's all for the Father. Everything goes back to Him. And that's the perspective that we need. Those are the parameters that we should stand by, because they are Levites, and the Levites went ahead and led the people into worshipping the Father. The Levites turned their backs on the people and went ahead. The dancers turned their backs on the people and led the people in the front. She was in the front with the woman, dancing and leading the people in the dance. But now, the worship leaders face the people. And who do they worship for? For the people. They're supposed to be worshiping for the Father. And that's something that the Father showed me. He said, isn't it interesting, my child, when my Levites were leading the procession of worship, they turned their back on the people and they worshipped me. But now, what are they doing now? They got their band up on stage where they get elevated above the people, above everything. And then they play for the people. This is not about the people. We don't focus on the people. We are to focus on the Father. It's about Him. But you see, everything has been distorted. And this is just where we are right now. That is what the devil has done. The devil has perverted everything. He's perverted the music. He's perverted the dance. He's perverted everything. And Miriam answered them, sing to Yahuwah, for He's highly exalted. The horse and its rider He has thrown into the sea. So understand, He is going to destroy those horsemen that are going to want to come up against us. He will destroy them if we are just going to stay in Him. If we are going to be faithful to stay in Him, He's going to destroy those horsemen. We don't need to worry. Interesting how she says the horsemen. What are the horses running? You know, the 4 horses of the book of Revelation. The white horse, the black horse, the white horse, the red horse, the black horse, the pale horse. We don't need to be concerned about those horses running if we are going to be able to stay in Him, because He will destroy them and He will protect us and we will be set apart. We don't need to be affected by what's going on there, because He will put us in His ark of His presence, because where will we be? In His dwelling place. When you are in the dwelling place of Yahuwah, nothing can touch you there. And Moshe brought Israel from the Sea of Reeds, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. There you go. You see now. Wow. They're going to go 3 days into the wilderness, just like Yeshua went 3 days into the grave. And are they going to see Him resurrect? Are they going to see His mighty power? What were the disciples doing in that time? Well, now you know what's now. Didn't He tell them that He would resurrect on the 3rd day? Didn't He tell them that He was going to be able to conquer? But what were they doing in the process? Well, now they killed Him. They're hiding in their houses. They're too scared to come out, because now they might just be arrested themselves. 3 days, He prepared them to come onto Mount Sinai, which we're still going to get to. 3 days He prepared them to come onto Mount Sinai. 3 days they had to wash themselves and cleanse themselves. How many times does the 3 days come up in this Bible? 3 days. They are now wandering in the wilderness. No water, no food. Wow. What are we going to do when we have no water, no food for 3 days? Sure. How many fasts have we done without water and food for 3 days? Let me tell you, I've done many a water fast, but the day that I had to do the no water and no food for 3 days, I thought, my Father, I'm literally going to die. It was one of the most difficult things I ever did. So, at the end of the day, I do understand them, because you see, now if you are on the water fast and you get hungry, just go drink some water, you'll get over yourself. But now when there's no water and there is no food, how are you going to behave? And this is what we're going to get to now. And this is when He says, and Moshe brought Israel from the Sea of Reeds, and they went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. What food? Maybe they've still got, I don't even know if they still had some of their unleavened bread that came with them, but there's no water. Now, you know, we can go without food, but we certainly can't go without water. Our body needs water. And now it says, and they came to Marah. Interesting how it had to be Marah. They came to Marah, and they were unable to drink the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. So the name of it was called Marah. So now understand, this is going to be the symbol of what is going to be of these people. They're going to be bitter of soul. So you got a choice. When things don't go your way, when things don't present themselves to the way you want it to be presented, you got a choice to make here. You either going to worship the Father, or you either going to become bitter of soul. When things get difficult in your life and things are not going to go the way you are wanting them to go, you got one of two choices over here. Because we are going to look at this. What is your mouth going to speak? Because we are now going into the wilderness. You must understand. From now, we are going to pass over. When we pass over, Thursday is our Passover. When we pass over, we go into our wilderness. We've been in a wilderness for a long time, but understand, now your words are going to be weighed, and we are going to look at this. And the tests are going to intensify, and the tests are going to become more, because the Father truly, truly, truly needs to be able to prepare us for what is coming. Now listen to what happens. It's called bitter. Now imagine, 3 days, you've had no water. Maybe you're still eating scraps of food that you brought with you, but your mouth is dry. You want water. There's nothing. Now you finally get to this water. And now what is it? Bitter. You can't even drink it. And now, what is going to come out of your mouth? Listen carefully. And the people grumbled against Moshe, saying, what are we to drink? So you see, when we are going to be in that place, when we are going to be tried, when we are going to be tested, when we are at our wits' end, when there's nothing else that we can do we go on our knees and start to worship Him, start to thank Him, and say, Abba Yahuwah, even though we're going to go through this process, I know that you are for me. I know. I mean, I've got a friend of mine, they had to move I think it was Friday. That's right. It was the 31st. They had to move. They had nowhere to go. I've been down this road before. And I gave her my testimony. 48 hours that when we were going to move the one time, 48 hours, and we had nowhere to go. I had 2 dogs, 2 cats, and there were 5 of us that were moving. It was myself, my husband, my 2 children, plus a friend of mine that was staying at the time with me, and we had nowhere to go. And every single time I tried to pick up the phone, the Father said to me, who's in control, you or me? Who's in control, you or me? Now I know I've got to be out. I've got 48 hours. I can see how my furniture is going to be put on the pavement because, time is running out of here. I got nowhere to go. And every single time, I can't even phone a real estate agent and say, please, can I just rent a house? No, I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to trust the Father. Every time I tried to take matters into my own hands, He said to me, who is in control, you or me? And I'd say, Father, you are. So I gave my friend the testimony and I said, my sister, I know one thing. The Father's never late. The Father's never early. He's always on time. And He will plan everything out. Literally, half an hour before they had to move out of their house on Friday, Father, someone phoned them, one of the real estate agents that they had got a hold of, to say, we've got an answer back. You may be able to come. You can move in today. And literally, they had half an hour. Everything was packed. Everything was ready. It was just, where are we going, Father? And I said, you see, my sister, if you did not go through that trial and that test, you would never know how faithful the Father is to be able to move you. And if I never went through my test, I would never know how faithful my Father is to be able to make a way for us. Oh, He provided the house. He provided the place to store the furniture. It was a miracle. Within 48 hours, He sorted out everything. The bond of our new house was accepted. The place that we needed to go was sorted. Even the fact that 2 dogs didn't get along with the other 2 dogs, the garden of the place that we went to was separated. Everything was 100% put in place. Father orchestrated everything. That's His faithfulness. But you know what? He's got to take us to the edge for us to truly trust Him. But you see, when that place comes, He said to me, you got to draw a line on your floor. I said, Father, for what? So that when you cross over that side, you can't look back. You look to me and only me. Draw a line like you draw a line in the sand, and let me take your hand and let me lead you. You need to understand what it means to be led by me. And that was I honestly tell you, it was one of the biggest trials that I went through in my life, was for me to sit there and we were not allowed to do anything. And you know what the father did? The father got a friend of mine. She was praying, on her knees praying. And the father said, phone Natalia. And she phoned me. And she said, what is going on? The father told me to phone you. I said, my sister, well, it's very strange because the father is busy testing my heart right now. So first I gave her a little sermon before I even got to what I needed. I said, he's given me Jeremiah chapter 5. Cursed is the man who puts his trust in the flesh and the arm of the flesh, because he will see nothing from the Father. But blessed is the man who's going to trust in him. He will be like a tree planted by the riverside that's going to be able to give shade for those that are going to come around. And so I said, he's given me, not Jeremiah chapter 5, Jeremiah chapter 17 from verse 5. And he says, the heart is wicked above all things. And who knows the heart? Who knows the intents of the heart? I do. I test the heart, I test the kidneys. So he's testing our thoughts, he's testing our motives, he's testing everything to see, will you trust him? Do you truly have faith in him? That is what he's testing. And then I said to her, and so I'm in this big test right now because I got nowhere to go. She said, what do you mean? I said, I got to move in 2 days' time, and I got nowhere to go. She says, but there's the ministry house. You can just move to the ministry house. And you know what? I just thought about it. I just thought about that because my friend still said, oh, but there's the ministry house. Hillary's got this ministry house. I said, I ain't going there. I'm making my plan. I said, no. I said, oh, a house. I said, oh, no, I'm not going there. See, the fear of Yahuwah came upon me to say, I've made enough of my plans. And I said, I ain't going there. I ain't phoning her. Next minute, my friend runs into the room, and she said, she went into the room, and she looked, she had a few missed calls from Hillary. And she says, I'm looking for Natalia, but she's not answering her phone. What is going on? Because I was in prayer, and the Father said, phone Natalia. See, that is what the Father will do. When you come to the place of where there's nothing else for you to do but to trust him, because he's going to put you to the test to see, do you truly trust him? And this is what is happening. And what do? Grumble. Then he cried out to Yahuwah, and Yahuwah showed me a tree. And when he threw it into the waters were made sweet. There he made a law and a right ruling for them, and there he tried them. Better make a note of that. There he tried them. Now, I want you to understand something. They have just come into the wilderness. Now, what is the name for wilderness? The name for wilderness is Midbar. That is why when you go and when we go into the wilderness, it's called Midbar. Now, the root word, Midbar, is the word that is for wilderness. Now, isn't it interesting? One of the root words for Midbar is Medaber. And you know what Medaber means in Hebrew? It means to speak, speaking. So guess what? He leads us into the wilderness because he's going to speak to us. He leads us in the wilderness to hear what are we speaking. So there's two things here. So our wilderness is going to be about the fact that the Father needs to speak to us to lead us. Remember what we read. He wants to lead us. He wants to lead us into that place of coming into the set apart dwelling place. If we would surrender, he's going to guide us into that place of the set apart holy place. Okay. So he brings us now into the wilderness. Now the wilderness is going to be our test. That is where they had the trial. So this was where he had tried them. He tried them. So from now on, the Israelites are going to be tried. And we are going to see every time that they are going to be tried, we are going to see what happens. And it's interesting because if you take the book of Numbers, Numbers is numbers. But what is numbers in Hebrew? Bamidbar. The wilderness
And Numbers is really the book of where we've got the greatest tests. The greatest tests that they go through. Because why? The speaking. So, Father leads us into this wilderness because now He's got to teach us. He's going to speak us. See, I lived in the wilderness. We lived in Arad. That was the wilderness. And when I would go out into that desert, 500 meters down the road from where I stayed, if I just walked down the road from where I stayed, we would come into the wilderness. And there would be times that I would go sit in that wilderness. Believe me, there's not really a shrub. There's a lot of stones all around you. It's rocks and stones. There's not much greenery around. It's not like you can go and hide under a tree. It's not like the bush that I live in now. That was wilderness. You can't hide from the Father. You can't go and hide from anything there. You are totally and utterly exposed. The next thing, you are not going to be able to hear any sound. The wilderness is silent. Totally and utterly silent. Be silent before Him and allow Him to be the one to speak, to be the one to lead. Because that is what He's going to do for us in this wilderness now. As we are going to pass over, And now, hear me when I say to you, you are going to now, your words are going to be weighed in the scales. Your words are going to be weighed in the scales because you will be tried. And what is going to come out of your mouth? Because the wilderness is the place of where there's the speaking. Medaber. Midbar is wilderness. So, Bamidbar, the wilderness. Medaber is to speak. Father wants to speak to us in our wilderness. We need to learn to be silent before Him, allow Him to speak to us. But if we are going to speak the wrong things out of our mouth, there's going to be, we are going to see it, it's not far now, where we're going to see when they then started complaining for some meat. And what happens to them then? Now it's the water. They already been tested in the water. Let's just see how we progress. So now He says, and He said, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuwah, so understand, you are coming into the wilderness, Midbar, because the Father wants to speak, and you now need to diligently obey His voice. Now, you better take note of this, because this is a prophetic word being spoken for you in the season that we're going into now. You need to understand what the Father's saying to you today, because you must understand what's coming. You must understand that we are going into the darkest hour that mankind has yet seen. We have got these things that's going to come upon us. Now listen carefully to what He's going to say to us today. And He said, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuwah, your Eloah, and do what is right in His eyes, and you shall listen to His commands, and you shall guard His laws. So I say to you today, if you are now going to continue to defy Him, if you're going to continue to break His laws, if you're going to continue to break His commands, the commands that He's put in His word, you better study those. We're going to get there. Oh, we're not very far from it. We're getting to chapter 16 next week. So we're almost at chapter 19, 20 to work through the commands so that we understand those commands properly. And He says, listen, when He says if, you better understand there's a condition. I told you, there's two things here. It's either what's going to come out of your mouth or what's going to come out of His mouth that's going to lead your life. And He says, if you diligently obey the voice of Yahuwah your Eloah and do what is right in His eyes and shall listen to His commands and shall guard His laws, I shall bring on you none of the diseases. Did you hear that? None. Now you must understand the plagues are going to come. You must understand the horses are going to ride. The horses are riding with the plagues. The horses are riding with the war, with the destruction, with the famine, with everything. So he says, I shall bring on you none of the diseases I brought on the Mitzrites, for I am Yahuwah who heals you. So understand, we need to be obedient. Now is an hour that we need to submit and surrender. And let me tell you, we better walk very circumspectly before the Father. If we're going to have the mindset to turn around and say, oh, well, Yeshua just went and nailed everything at the cross. I don't need to worry about keeping anything because he's done it all for me. I'm going to see what's going to happen to you in the days ahead. Because let me tell you, he did not spare these Israelites in the wilderness for their disobedience, and these are his chosen people. What makes you think you are any better than them? What makes us think that we are any better than them? What makes me think that I am going to be spared if I'm not going to obey? Better we get the fear of Yahuwah in us. And they came to Elim, where there were 12 fountains of water. You see, this is exactly what Ron White did. He took his Bible, and then when they came out, they came to a place called Elim, where there were 12 fountains. That's what he looked for. He looked for the 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees. And do you know that he found those 70 palm trees still there? And they camped there by the waters. So praise Abba Yahuwah. We must understand. That is why the Father wanted me to do this today, because the prophetic word needed to come forth before we pass over, because we got to pass over by Thursday. And you see, I was now feeling weak in my flesh, not wanting to do this, but yet Father knew he's got a prophetic word to speak to his people. And all I need to do is just be still, open my mouth, and he's going to speak. Praise Abba Yahuwah. Abba Yahuwah. Truly, my Father, I just want to thank you, Father. I thank you for your love, for your grace, and for your mercy, my Father. All I can do is just humble myself and worship you and say to you, Father, who am I? Who am I to want to sit and say, I will not do that which you want me to do? Because of my own weakness in my own flesh. Forgive me, my Abba. Forgive me because you wanted to speak to your people, but I was about my flesh. But today I want to say, please forgive me, Abba Yahuwah. Because if I was not obedient to do what you wanted to do, this prophetic word would not have come forth in this day. And so I thank you for your faithfulness, Father. I thank you that you are faithful, my Father, because as I just obeyed, this is what comes. The healing will come if I diligently obey your voice. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough, Father. I know the trials and the tests sometimes are so difficult, and we don't always know how to be able to endure. And then our mouth wants to speak, and the enemy comes and torments even more. But we must just be faithful to be able to do that which you have asked us to do. And in our faithfulness just to you, even when it makes no sense, even when our body is weak, even when we think, I cannot take it anymore, let us just raise your name. Let us just worship you. Let us just exalt you, my Father. Let us just raise your name and say, you are the one that is worthy to be praised. And even though I might be slain, yet you will be exalted. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I thank you for your word tonight. I thank you for the word that you have brought, this mighty, powerful word, my Father. For us to understand the time that we are passing into. For us to understand that this is a critical hour now. Oh, my Father, just like that prophet that phoned me yesterday. And he said to me, Natalia, you are standing on a mountain and there's a volcano in front of you. And you have warned the people, and you have warned the people. And they have not listened. And they will go down into the valley and they will stand in that valley knowing that the destruction is going to come. Yet they did not heed to the word. And destruction will hit them. Abba, I cry out for those people in the valley as you have shown me before. The multitudes and the multitudes in the valley of decision. Ah, Father, I cry out for that multitude, Father. That they will make the decision truly to be able to follow you wholeheartedly, to be faithful. You drew a line in the sand and you said, choose you this day whom you will serve. And if they were going to follow the flesh, they would be destroyed, because you said a little leaven will leaven the whole lump. And they were to choose. They were to choose whom they would serve. They were to choose whom they would follow, because the chasm is going to become bigger and bigger between the darkness and the light. And so, Abba Yahuwah, I still stand on that mountain and I cry out for your people, as I did in that dream. That I said, wake up, oh sleeper, wake up out of your slumber. And you said to me, Natalia, they have eyes, yet they do not see. They have ears, yet they do not hear. But Abba, I will continue to cry out for mercy, and I will continue to cry out that you will open their ears and that you will open their eyes, that they may hear and that they may see. Abba Yahuwah, I pray that this message will find the people that need to find it, that they will find this message, that you will make this message go far and wide for the people that need to be able to hear it, Father, so that they will wake up in this hour, because truly the days ahead of us is just going to become more and more challenging. And if we're now not going to start to obey, we are not going to be spared of the diseases that are going to come. And so I ask you, Father, for your grace and your love and your mercy for your people in the name of Yeshua Mashiach. Amen.